Hi there, I'm Brennan Reese, and I want to talk a little bit about some rhythm guitar stuff. Basically, a way that you can learn chords all up and down the neck so that you're not just playing the same chord voicing. If you know you've got a lot of chords to play, a lot of the same chord to play over an extended period of time, and also like comping a little more melodically. When I say comping, that's short for accompanying. A lot of times you'll see people, they'll have one chord voicing and they'll have a root here and a root here, and that's pretty much it. They're not really doing anything creative or interesting or even fun playing rhythm guitar, and rhythm guitar is a hell of a lot of fun. So I guess the first thing is I base everything, I'm not going to say everything, but I base a lot of things off of two voicings, and again, they have a root here and a root here. The first one is, instead of playing an A7 chord, which is fine, but in jazz you want something a little more colorful. If I have a root here, most of the time I'm going to be playing an A13. And it's basically the same chord. It has these three notes out of this voicing, and that's the 5th fret on the E string, the 5th fret on the D string, and the 6th fret on the G string, right? And if I put my little finger here on the 7th fret, on the B string, that gives me an A13. And it's kind of bright and sophisticated sounding. So that's kind of my default. And you don't want to use that all the time for every song, because sometimes it's the wrong texture. It's the wrong flavor for every genre of music. But for a lot of jazz and swing, it's a good place to start, as opposed to So that's the first one. The other A I use has its root here on the 12th fret of the A string, and it's an A9. And this is really pretty high for playing rhythm guitar, so I don't often go up this high, but just to keep everything in the same tonality, I'm going to use these A's. So I have this A9, so if I want to, the first thing I can do is I know I have an A here and an A here. It's good to memorize the notes, or actually learn them deeply on all the strings. And a good place to start is, on the E and the A strings, because that's going to really determine kind of where your key positions are most of the time if you're playing based around chord forms like I do. So I'm just going to play around with an A, and I'm only going to use these two chord forms. So I have my A13 and my A9, and again, it's 12th fret on the A string, 11th fret on the D, 12th on the G and the B strings. All right, so. And you notice one of the things I'm doing is I'm sliding in. And just like when we're doing the little melodic things, you can always lead into any note from a half step below. 1 fret is a half step, right? So I can go just... And I can go 2 frets below as long as I'm going 1 fret at a time. So... Right, so that's one way you can just take, instead of A7, instead of that, and that's cool, man. But it's just not, it's not jazzy. So one thing that I keep in mind is kind of a rule of thumb. It's not always true, and you're going to see even the great players breaking this all the time. You don't play regular 7 chords. You don't just play like A7. You don't play D minor 7. That's not really a jazz thing. That being said, people do it all the time, especially when someone's soloing. But if you want to play lush, interesting chords, don't stop at the 7, play a 9 or a 13 or a sharp 11 or a 6 or something. This is just a much hipper sound. Again, rule of thumb, take it for what it's worth. So I've got these two voicings. Now the next thing I do is I start adding another voicing. So, excuse me, I have this A13, and I'm going to play another chord voicing, which is technically a C sharp minor 7 flat 5. But if I were to play with my thumb here, it becomes an A9 chord, right? Or if a bass player were playing, it would be an A9 chord. And because I'm playing it next to the A13, in context, it sounds like an A9. So a lot of the old blues players like T-Bone Walker would play this voicing. And it really, if I'm doing like this, it sounds like a minor 7 flat 5, but if I'm playing right, it has a much different tonality because of the expectations our ear has set up for us. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this A13, and then I go off here. There's that major third interval, and the major third interval is the same as if you're playing that cowboy G chord, right? So it's that, up a string, down a fret, that little backward slash. So A13 off of the A note on the E string, 5th fret, and C sharp minor 7 flat 5 off the C sharp, which is the third of the chord, right? So I have that to that, right? So that's the little first move, and I just practice playing this and playing this. And so what you do is when you're playing this shape, you play this one too, but you play it in your head. So you're not just like doing a finger thing, you're always visualizing what you're playing in context of the notes around it. So right, so another thing that you can do from there, and I've got a melody note there and a melody note here. Well, I can get this melody note by playing, and that's another form of A9. So these two notes, right, I'm playing from here and here. And this note from this chord, I'm moving it down to this string, so up to that string. So that C sharp, I'm just moving it there, taking these two notes from that chord, and I'm playing the root. And you don't have to play the root. You can, but it's easier to see it. But again, if you don't play the root, you're playing it in your head. You're visualizing it there. So you're seeing everything in the context of the shape. So gives you a cool little, almost like a little piano comping thing, much hipper way of doing it. And later on, when you learn a little bit more about chord theory, you can do cool things with that, like, okay, well, here's my 13, well, I'm going to flat this, and I'm going to end up with an A7 sharp 5, which is a super hip sound, and I can take it back to that. I can play, the A7 flat 5, which is that very kind of 1950s bebop spy music guitar ending chord that I love to use, and kind of irritate myself when I do it. And then you take this, and you can take this back, and think of that in terms of an A. You're playing an A9 flat 5. So which is nice and dissonant, very cool 1950s jazz kind of thing. Probably don't want to do it all the time. You can take this voicing, which is that 9 I was showing you, and that's 5th fret on the E string, 5th fret on the D string, 4th fret on the G string, 2nd fret on the B string. Relax your hand, like you're not stretching this, you're just kind of letting your hand fall naturally. So now I have 3 chords, and I have all these little, a lot of fun. Now, I can take this A9, standard James Brown, right, that 12, 11, 12, 12, and I'm going to move this back, and this is almost like a little A minor shape, right? But I'm taking the first finger and I'm moving it up, so these two notes are on the same fret. So that's 10th fret A string, 11th fret on both the D and the G strings, and 10th fret on the B string. And that gives me an A13, but it has a flat 7 in the bass. So what I can do with that, right? So here, here, then there, and there. And now over this note, I can actually play this same shape, move it down, and that is this chord, this C sharp minor 7 flat 5. A lot of people, they play it with their thumb. I usually don't, but this guitar, the neck is a little bit weird. I'm not used to it yet. But that's basically, so that is the 9th fret on the low E string, also the 9th fret on the D and the G, and 8th fret on the B. So now I have this thing going all the way up the guitar. I have this A9, A13, A9, A13, A9, A9, right? So I can go all the way down the guitar. All right, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to go. And, you know, if you get that with the A, and you kind of think, okay, well, I'm thinking about this chord in terms of this one, right? So that's just like, there's my A9. I'm mentally playing this note, right? I'm visualizing that. And then this one, I'm just seeing this is, you know, being, you know, 4 frets higher, you know, skip 3, right? Than the A13, or I'm seeing it in relationship to that. So, and the more you practice it, the better it gets. So, you know, practice going back and forth between two until it becomes natural. You know, use little, you know, enclosures. It gives you like instant cool jazz type things. Do like a shout chorus or whatever. And then when you're playing a 12-bar blues, you can take those same voicings and move them around. So I might go, I played a little bit of different stuff there. But anyway, that gives you an idea. So anyway, if you have any questions or comments or need some clarifications, let me know. You know, I'd be happy to do any videos on some of these concepts for you. We'll be expanding a lot of this stuff. I'll show you how to use some of these same concepts for soloing and playing chord melody or solo guitar if you're hip. You know, I'll see you guys next time. Have fun playing and practice your ass off.